Hey, everybody. Hey there, welcome. Whether you are watching this as your first class or your sixth class, welcome, welcome. If this is your first class that you're catching, this is class 6 out of 14 that make up an entire childbirth series. And so if you are liking what you see and you would like to watch more of the series, which I highly recommend, the entire series, start to finish, check out the links below where you can get access to the other classes. So tonight is class 6, and I am thrilled to be here. A little crazy behind the scenes running around. I feel like up until the very minute, trying to get things situated, but everything is ready here for another great night. I don't know about you guys, but I thought class 5 was super. And I really thought we had a great conversation and covered a lot of topics, including that decision-making strategy. I would love to know of the decision-making strategy for those of you guys that saw it last night. Hello to everybody in the chat, to Jay and Christy and Kayla and Ann. Only one Kayla so far in the chat of our 3. And Patty, Quinn Blog, and Diana. When you get in the chat, let me know of the brains strategy that we learned last night, the brains strategy. Which letter do you think is going to be most beneficial for you to know when you're trying to make a decision on something happening with pregnancy, birth or postpartum? So let me know which letter. So was it the B, the R, the la, la, la? Which one? Awesome. And, oh, very cool. Anne said she met with her doula today. That's great. And Anne, I know your doula because she reached out to me, which is awesome. Very cool. There are several of you guys are working with doulas, which is fun. We've got, I see all of them: instinct, risk, alternatives, not now, alternatives, instinct, alternatives, not now. Jenna can't pick one. They do go well together as a group. Cool. Well, every single night we have a portion of our class where we talk about how birth works. And we have a portion of our class where we have a coping procedure. Kayla, for those of you guys just jumping in, the question I was asking for live chat is, which of those letters in our brains analogy, brains, B-R-A-I-N-S, is your favorite, or do you feel like is going to mean the most when you are making a decision? Funny story, if we were in person, I usually write that on a board. I love writing on a board. You can kind of tell from my chalkboard over here when I teach in-person classes. And more often than not, I would misspell brains and put Brian's. So just a letter swap, and whoops, acronym. Yeah, acronym. I can't even get it right. Oh my gosh. And acronym, not analogy. An analogy is when you're comparing one thing to another, which I also like to do, like comparing birth to hiking, right? That's one of my favorites. Okay, so tonight we're talking about the 6 healthy birth practices, and we are talking about partner support. So for those of you who registered for the class where you're getting emails from me, hopefully the right balance between enough and not enough emails with information about the class or offers or that kind of thing, links. I sent out a special deal, and the deal ends at 10 p.m. today. So it ends like half hour after class, and it is one of the best deals for the Supporting Her course that I offer. I don't think I've ever offered this one, and I think it's pretty amazing. So I will talk more about the Supporting Her course, but I want to give a quick overview right now that the Supporting Her course is something that I developed. It's an online course created just for the support people. So dads, partners, whoever's going to be supporting. I've had grandmothers to be that are supporting that have taken the course. And the course is designed really specifically for that role, giving the support people the information they need so that they can be at their best. And this all started after after dueling for so long. I love working with partners. That's one of my most favorite parts of my role as a doula. And I started teaching. I was co-teaching with a nurse in a hospital, a big hospital class, and she needed someone to come in and, quote, keep the partners busy while she went over breastfeeding, because in her mind, she wanted the partners to not be there for breastfeeding. That's another story, not my choice. So I thought, well, what an honor to be able to talk to the partners. And so I created a class back then to talk just to the partners, and I got to do Q&A, and I just really got a lot of insight into their needs and how to help them and how to best prepare partners. And then I turned it into an online course, and it has been out since 2016, I believe, 2016, late 2016. We've had hundreds of people go through it, and lots of really great feedback. And it's something that I highly recommend for my doula clients, my childbirth ed clients. So the deal today is if you sign up, you get $10 off the course, which it's usually $59, it's down to $49, and then you get to pick your bonus. You either get to pick the workbook for free and free shipping, or you get to pick the class recordings of this class, which you get the handouts and that kind of thing as well. So it's a great deal. Hopefully you got the email. Oh, cool. Miranda said that she just bought the deal, excited to take the class. Awesome. And it is, you can find a link to, yes, partners can absolutely be the other mom, 100%, which is why I say partners. Partners, mom. Sometimes it's confusing if I say mom, moms, but that's why partners. I like to use that word. Okay. And if you did not get the email, if you didn't sign up, you can find a link down below to our class directory. And on the class directory, there is let me just show you guys real quick. These are all of our links for all the classes. And Kayla, thank you for alerting me last night that I did not have the homework set up right. I worked on that today to make sure that I got all that together. So right above class 6, you can pick this button for the free recordings bonus, this button for the free book bonus. And then I also have set up where you can gift supporting her to someone. So if you have someone who is looking for a gift for you, you like education, that's a great gift. And it's also 10% off. And inside that, where you make that purchase, it lets you pick the bonus. And and that's good until 10 o'clock today also. Okay, so quick thing about our deal. Now, the deal that we're talking about today, what the deal is, and I'm trying to get to my slides. Here they are. For some reason, I don't have you guys already said hello. I love it. I love how so many of you guys already know each other in the chat, or have gotten to know each other, we should say, in the chat. I have a delay right now on my slides on my computer. So while I'm waiting for those slides to refresh, let me give you a little intro into the Lamaze 6 healthy birth practices that we're talking about today. So Lamaze is a childbirth education company. It is a not-for-profit company, and it is a company that certifies people to become childbirth educators and provides education as well. So it has a long history. The organization has been around for over 60 years now. And I first certified to become a doula. When I was looking to certify as an educator, I saw these 6 healthy birth practices, and I was like sold, because I was always interested in something that kind of gave an overview of what does healthy birth look like? What does healthy birth follow? And these birth practices really do a nice job of saying, hey, if you want to have the healthiest birth, this is what research has said. And we have consolidated the research into these 6 easy to remember, easy to understand phases. Now, this is really important. And I want everybody to super focus in on this statement, is that this is like, I think of this as like a recipe. If you're making a recipe, generally, especially the first time, we're all different, right? Some of us are more comfortable changing up recipes, substituting, that kind of thing. But if you are someone new and you're making a recipe, usually you try to follow it the way that it's listed. And then you feel like if you did follow it the way it was listed, you would get what you were trying to make as the results. And you can say, yeah, I either like the recipe or not. Well, I think of the 6 healthy birth practices kind of like a recipe for our birth, in that we might have to make some substitutions. There might be some scenarios, and when I go through it, this is going to make more sense. But there might be times that you don't have an option for one of these 6, whether your health doesn't allow, whether your providers don't support. Those are usually sort of the 2 scenarios. Maybe you personally choose, yeah, that's not one that is important to me. So I like to start out with that kind of background information, so that sometimes when I used to teach this, I would get people asking questions, very valid questions like, well, what if I have to be induced? Because we're going to talk about induction in there. And then they just kind of shut down the whole, like, I don't like Lamaze 6 healthy birth practices because it's not flexible enough. So it's a guideline. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know in the chat with a thumbs up or a yes if it's making sense so far, or a question mark if not. Remember, just as a reminder, if you have a question for me along the way, I love to kind of keep an eye on the chat for questions, and I try to answer them as I can, especially if they sort of pertain to what we're talking about. But the easiest way is just to start your question with a Q so that we know. And, oh, this is interesting. Michelle says, last name is Brain here, and I get Brian so often. Yep, that would be me. I'm glad I'm not the only one making that mistake. Okay, it looks like we are on board. I see lots of thumbs up. Great. Also, so here's our recipe. And now let me switch over to the actual, we have right here, and I'm going to get this closer so you guys can see it. So there is a PDF that I am going to show you. If you can't read it, or if I have it too small, please know that down below I have entered the link to this PDF. You can always download it and read it yourself. If you want to look up any of the research or anything like that, I want to make sure that you know that it's down below. Yes. Oh, very cool. Anne said her mom used Lamaze with some of the 6 of us. Yeah, she taught. Very cool. Well, I love it. I think it's a really good strategy. So number 1 of our recipe for our 6 healthy birth is, I would say, probably the one that feels a little bit difficult for some people. And that is, let your labor begin on its own. So we say that normal pregnancy lasts from 38 to 42 weeks, and that the body generally knows when to start labor. That induction itself could make contractions harder and stress the baby. So again, in an ideal world, we would let our bodies go into labor on our own. let our body choose labor. Now, I find this one to be the hardest because the induction rate in North America is very high. And that is also why, as you guys know, because I've probably said it every class, we're going to have how many classes on induction? 2, right? You guys know because I've said it. We're going to have 2 classes on induction. And that's because induction is so common that I want to make sure all of my students are totally aware of it. And then if you aren't induced, you just learn something about induction, but I don't want you to have the flip side where you haven't learned it. So letting labor begin on its own is really allowing your body sort of the best chance at staying healthy birth. Okay, so let's scroll down to number 2. So number 2 is something that we are so, I know you guys are sold on. I know we've talked about movement in our class 2. We had our movement, and you guys remember that we talked about moving, trying to help baby move through the pelvis, staying active, changing positions, walking. All of that is a benefit to our labor. And here we see help our uterus work more efficiently. You guys know that we talked about that, right? That if we are moving around and our uterus is contracting, we're helping it because we are helping that baby push down, get closer to the cervix. Then each contraction of the uterus is going to more efficiently open. Remember, our uterus is pulling our cervix open and pushing the baby down onto the cervix. Not only are we moving to try to help baby get down, but I love this third sentence here that says, actively responding to labor may help you feel more confident and less afraid. So let's think about that for a minute, right? When we have the ability to move our bodies in response to what we're feeling, we do usually feel more in control, right? Where we can kind of make adjustments and sort of just like do something in response to just having to like sit still or lay down. That being active actually can give us the confidence and make us feel like we are being an active member of our labor. The other thing about movement, which isn't listed, but you guys know because it's in our toolbox, that movement is a great coping strategy. That just handling pain, using movement to handle pain is another strategy for pain management. Right? Now, sorry, Patty, I zoomed right past induction. Why is induction more common here versus other places? You know, that's a great question. And it kind of depends on where you're comparing it to. So we see a lot of European countries follow more of the midwifery model of care, where they have more. This is going to sound maybe oversimplifying it, but have more trust in the body. And in America, we tend to see more control sort of over birth. The medicalization of birth is pretty high, and also we do also live in a society that likes things scheduled and planned. And so a lot of people, when they are offered an induction, that feels comfortable to them to have an induction. And again, you know, this is our recipe. You might not choose all of these. Someone, if you're watching this and you feel like, you know, no, I am like that, I want to have an induction, that is great. Just make sure you come to my induction classes where we cover what it's like and pros and cons, because I always want people to go into an induction so that they have all the information and know everything about it. So So that, I hope that answered your question a little bit. Okay, so movement. I know everybody is totally on board with movement, right? Number 3, bring a loved one, a friend, or a doula for continuous support. So this is so important. And I love that there are options here. And this is not saying you have to have your partner or you have to have a doula. Like, it's giving you options that whoever is going to be there, someone who is in that role, that having someone there with you continuously is going to help you with creating that healthy birth environment. That I love it how it says praise, reassurance, and encouragement decrease stress, right? We can do someone who is there supporting you can provide physical support if you need somebody to push on your back, if you need someone to give you a hand massage, if you need someone to fan you with a fan, all of that, someone who's there for continuous support. And informational support can increase confidence. Now, this one is really speaking mostly to a doula, that a doula's role often is to bring informational support, kind of like your childbirth educator, me. Like, if I was your doula, I would give you information if you were like, what do you think the benefits are here? And I would probably say, oh, well, let's ask your care provider. But from what I've seen, there's this, and this. So the informational support is pretty heavy on a doula, but partners and loved ones and friends can also, do things like read your notes. If you bring your book to labor, can look things up. What are some positions I could use? What does it mean? What does this word mean, or whatever? So that continuous support is so important. And of course, that's what we're talking about tonight in our class as well. Now, here is what's interesting about this, that a study was actually done where they tested to see if they have someone who is untrained in the labor room with you, that their role is just to sort of be there, supportive. They don't have any skills. They're not a doula. They're just someone there who's like your person standing there. That just having another human in there with you, sort of alongside you, that already made a difference in reducing cesarean rate. But doulas also have have been shown to reduce cesarean rate by 20%. So the person that is coming with you to birth is really important. And that is why that we're talking about support today. And COVID, I think someone in the chat yesterday, I can't remember who, was talking about how COVID is limiting the number of people at a birth, which is very true. Most hospitals will, here's a question that just popped up from Elizabeth. Has COVID been reducing the possibility of a doula and a partner in the room? So in some areas of the world, the COVID hospitals have been changing their policies, where they have gone down to one person and kept doulas out of the room. And some places, for a very short amount of time, New York had a couple days where they kept partners out, which was a big deal. So you can bring anyone, no person, not even a doula, not a partner, person by themselves. So, and it is super unfortunate. It's not something that I should probably start talking about because I might start ranting. Kayla says only one person, doula or partner. Yeah. Right. Miranda says my OB says doulas aren't allowed, but you can still video call. Yeah. And I have done that for people, been on a video call. And that does work pretty well. Let's talk about that in support. So you guys remind me that when we talk about our support, let's talk about the idea of a video call. But what's so hard for me and just frustrating, like Anne said, is that it's not everywhere. So like out here in Seattle, there was maybe a 1 week period where they said just one person. And then since then it's been open. So doulas have been allowed. And so it's like, we know that it's possible because we see it in a lot of other places where you can bring a doula and a partner and it's not having a problem. But for the areas that are restricted, it's hard. Yeah. Some places are allowing both partner and let's see. Christy says, in our area, a couple hours east of Atlanta, my hospital is allowing a partner and counts a doula as a care team rather than a visitor. Yeah, are doing one visitor. So it's all different. Partner and doula. Doula doesn't count because they're hospital staff. Yeah. So it's all different. Partner doula. Yes. So hard. Okay. Yay. My friend had a roaming doula at her hospital that anyone could use. Interesting. A roaming doula. I love that. Oh, I hate that, Elizabeth, that your husband can't even come to the ultrasounds. Yeah. This is a hard time. I actually made a video message to all of you guys pregnant in 2021, because just acknowledging that this being pregnant right now is challenging. So if you feel that it's challenging, I am validating that it is challenging to you. It's challenging. Okay. So of our 3, we've got so far 3 out of our 6 healthy birth practices. We have, let labor begin on its own. We have, what's our next one? Labor begin on its own. Movement, pelvis movement. And then we have our continuous support, right? So feeling pretty good so far, right? I think so. Okay. So number 4, I queued that one up so we could see it. Number 4 is another one that can be a little tricky. It's got a key word in there, 2 keywords. Avoid interventions that are not medically necessary. So what this means is, sorry, thought my phone was going to start ringing. What this means is avoid intervening with the process. So, and I'm going to go through some examples of what an intervention is. It says many disrupt the birthing process, making it more difficult. Choose a birth setting with a low rate of interventions. Now, I think that this is very difficult. If you're hearing this and thinking like, I don't know if my place where I'm giving birth has low rate of interventions, then you are probably like most of us, because they aren't published freely so that it's something that we have access to this data. So while it might be something that you could ask your doula or ask, friends, does that hospital have a lot of like a high C-section rate or do a lot of interventions or that kind of thing? It's hard to get that information. And now the next one, ask your care provider if they routinely use any intervention. That is something that all of us can ask. Is this an easy conversation? It is not. Let me know in the chat if you've had a conversation with your care provider about their interventions like C-section induction. Has anybody had that, had any type of information to have an idea if the person that's going to be working with you to catch your baby has a high rate of induction and C-section? Let me know in the chat, like either a no, definitely not have that conversation, or a yes. Yeah, Patty said The only info I could look up on cesarean rate was cesarean rate for hospitals. And a lot of areas, like in Atlanta, where I used to be, they don't even publish cesarean rate on a lot of the hospitals. Yes. Oh, Kirby, great. Kirby said, I have, and it caused me to choose a new provider. LOL. Yeah, that's great. That's great that you've had that information. That's so good. Yes. Christy says, I've noticed private hospitals are more evidence-based, birth friendly, seem to be more doula friendly rather than ones that are corporate owned. Yep. Sometimes we see that. Yep. Some have had the conversation. Hey, Tanisha, she said she's had that convo. Miranda hasn't. Anne said her OB's totally supportive. I love that. That is really huge. Yes. Oh, yep. Ashley said Ashley is looking to VBAC, so she has to find a place that's going to support that. Exactly. Great. So it looks like that you guys, a lot of you have already had that conversation or sought that out, which is great. And if you haven't, do what Elizabeth did. Add to the list of questions. And I mean, one of my questions that I like to suggest, especially around induction, is how often do you recommend induction for your patients and for what reasons? So that's really good information to kind of hear about in the beginning, if you can, to find out what their policies are like. Now, I'm going to be real that we might not have choices. Your insurance might only allow 1 or 2 places to give birth, and just location, right? If you're in a rural area, if you have insurance like Kaiser or something, like Kaiser out here, you can only birth at a couple hospitals. So it can be trickier than it sounds. So that just a little disclaimer that even though this is the ideal, sometimes we might have problems kind of finding that ideal. Then number 4 is during labor, ask if there's another alternative. So remember, the A is really ideal when we're thinking about avoiding interventions that are not medically necessary. So let's do a quick, let me give a quick example of interventions that are not medically necessary. Okay. Here's a good one. Breaking the water. We talked about in our second class about the baby and about the amniotic fluid, about what it is like to break the water. Well, breaking the water is definitely an intervention. And it is a very uncommon intervention that is medically necessary. So there are rare times when the provider says, we need to break your water because for the health and safety of the baby or for the labor to progress correctly or for whatever reason. It is very rare that is medically necessary. It's usually suggested more to speed up labor, which speeding things up is not medically necessary. It's usually more about a preference. Okay. So breaking the water is one that is a really good example. Another example might be restricting fluids in labor. So not allowing someone to have clear fluids like drinking water, restricting food in labor. Both of those they go against research. So it's not medically necessary, like to hold back on giving you food or water in labor. Though sometimes we see that happening, and some hospitals have a policy that they do not support eating and drinking in labor, which is not backed by research. Which these are the ones that are super tough, because it's like you learn one thing from your childbirth educator that says avoid interventions that are not necessary. And one of them is restricting food in labor. And then you read something that says like a study that says you should be able to eat in labor. And then you are in labor and go to a hospital that says, yeah, we don't allow that. And that is a tough place to be in. That at the time, that is where it puts you in that space of, I need to use the brain's strategy and figure out if this is right for me. Because hospital policies are guides. They aren't necessarily something that you can't have preferences about. They just can be hard. It can be hard. Yeah. So Diana says, my hospital said I'm not allowed food, only clear liquids in labor. So Diana, I'm not advising you what to do, but if you're like Diana and you have heard that it's good to eat in labor, and you have read research that says it is good to eat in labor, I would put that on the list of either talk to my care provider about it. Why is this against research? And or what Anne said, right? Because we do have control over our own bodies. So yes. And Anne is not the only one. Let's say there are many, many, many people that just eat as they feel like they need to eat in labor. What are the risks if they do break your water? Oh, yes. Hey, Cindy. So risks, real quick, of water breaking. The baby no longer has that protective sac around them. So it increases the risk of infection, especially for any time a vaginal exam is done. You increase the risk of infection. You also decrease the baby's ability to move around in position. So if the baby needed to position, then the baby might have a harder time without having the water around there. But the biggest one is really that risk of infection goes up. And, it's a hard thing to watch in labor when a provider suggests, hey, let's break your water to speed things up. It doesn't speed things up. And then, 10 hours go by, and then you have the same care provider saying, now you're at risk for an infection. Well, you're at risk of an infection because they broke your water. And that's a tough situation. Can you guys picture that? That doesn't make you feel great in labor. So that's why you're here at Childbirth Class. So you're learning all this and you're able to make decisions that really work for you and work towards your goals. So another not a necessary medical a intervention that's not medically necessary is an IV running with fluids. So unless you're being induced or you have an epidural, or for some reason you're dehydrated, you do not need to have fluids running in an IV. That is not medically necessary. And it can disrupt the birthing process because then you've got to pull, you're kind of being pumped through with fluids. So yeah. Okay. Let's see. Kirby said, my midwife said, what your nurse doesn't know won't hurt her about food. Oh my gosh, that's funny. And just like, why are we in this place, right? Jay says, will they kick you out if they found out you did eat when it was against the rules or take your food away with consent? No, they won't do any of that. They are not allowed to kick you out. It's against the law to kick out someone in labor that you need to provide medical support to. And will they take your food away without consent? No. They probably will tell you, it depends on who they are. They'll probably just be like, hey, you're not supposed to be eating. Okay. Or they might say, you have put yourself in danger. You haven't. But they might say something like that, but hopefully not. But that's kind of like the worst that would happen. Yes, Kirby said, my breastfeeding class told me today that IV fluids make the baby lose more weight after birth. Yeah, so what that is, Kirby, and for those of you who are learning about breastfeeding, planning to breastfeed, If you are exposed to a lot of IV fluid in labor, so through an induction or through a long epidural, sometimes that sort of bloats up, puffs up the baby. And so it's not that they lose more, so the baby sort of has retained water weight. So let's say the baby, weighs in at 8 pounds at birth. Well, some of that might be extra water weight that was affected because they had fluids, because you had IV fluids, and then they lose that weight pretty quickly. And then there can be sort of that struggle of like, is the baby eating enough? Did they lose too much weight? And a lot of it has to do with that IV fluids that they were exposed to in labor. It's amazing how everything relates, right? So that's huge. Okay, are these questions? I'm skipping over and I'm going straight to the question. If I missed a question, let me know. What are the reasons for liquid diet in labor? So a liquid diet is an old standard that the idea was that if you have to have an emergency cesarean birth where you have to be put under with general anesthesia, this is super, 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 super rare, okay? That you are more at risk of a complication if you have food digesting in your stomach. Your digestive system doesn't digest quickly when you're in labor. Now, I've also heard people say, well, we see, people get into an accident on the side of the road after they've just eaten, at fast food or something. That scenario happens and they are able to have surgery. And, it's not like, oh, well, we can't take them to the operating room because they just ate. So it's really kind of an old thing that hasn't been updated in all hospitals. But in the more progressive hospitals that follow research, eating in labor, that is totally fine. So we just haven't seen that trickle through all the hospitals yet. Out here in Seattle, it's not a problem. People can eat in labor. I wish it was like that everywhere. Okay, so not medically necessary. That is the key for the interventions. Let's move on to number 5. Number 5 is avoid giving birth on your back and follow your body's urge to push. Okay, so this is 2 different things. Both have to do with pushing. You guys know class 9 is all about pushing. We are going to go deep into pushing, talking all about the positions and all of this. But what this is saying is that we should take advantage, if we can, of gravity, that we can use either upright or like hands and knees, leaning over the back of the bed if we can. Lying on our side actually counts as a position that is very positive and a great position for pushing. And I will demonstrate that on class 9. And adjust the hospital bed to try to support positions. So the classic sort of semi-reclined on your back position, Lamaze is saying research does not support that. Now, do we see that it still happens? Yeah, we really do. We really do. However, we should work towards changing that. And I'm going to revisit this with pushing, so don't feel like you got to memorize all of this right now, because I know you guys will be back for class 9, right? But pushing can take a while, especially if you are a first timer. So you don't have to birth on your back. You don't necessarily have to do the final couple pushes in an upright position, but the beginning of the pushing phase you can do upright, and that is supported. So it doesn't mean that you have to spend your whole time in one position when you push. Tanisha, I was going to bring this up. Tanisha says, I watched the 3rd video of your labor vlog recommendations list, and it's such an amazing example of pushing on hands and knees and pushing when your body tells you to naturally without being prompted. Yes, Tanisha, I love that vlog. That's great. So if you haven't watched it, check out my channel. I just published it last Tuesday. And it's 5 birth vlog videos that I recommend that you watch. So if you haven't checked that out, check that out. And there is a great example of pushing on hands and knees. And she births on hands and knees too, which is lovely. There's also an unmedicated, there's several pushing. I mean, they're all pushing. There's a few that are epidural pushes that I think are really good to watch, that they are feeling enough that they're going with their natural urge, which is great. And there's another unmedicated labor that she is in that semi-reclined position. So it's good just to kind of see it all. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes. Let's see. Miranda says, my friend who's a nurse said they keep a pole under the beds that you can hold onto. Is this commonly used? I love that you called it a pole, which is great. It's a bar. Yes, it is. Is it commonly used? I think it depends on where you're giving birth. But it's called a squat bar, and I will explain it more when we talk about pushing. But yes, it goes over the bed, and you can lean on it and kind of get yourself into a squatting position. So a lot of hospitals support it. Some hospitals have it in a closet somewhere and they don't even know where it is. So kind of depends. But I mean, it does make sense, right? To be upright. I mean, bloop, right? Baby is going down. Seems like we should not have to like push up and out. Yeah. So ideal is upright positions. Okay. So keep your baby with you. This one, I think we are all on board, right? Keep your baby with you. It's best for the baby and for breastfeeding. I recently got I have a couple, I think it's in the homework. I forgot to check the homework playlist. I think it's in the homework, my skin to skin recommendation video. So skin to skin is a very popular concept right now, because research said that baby being held skin to skin, whether it's the person that just birthed out the baby or someone else, one of the two, that it is actually the healthiest place for the baby to be. And that means the baby's naked skin on your naked skin, and held like that for the first hour, that golden hour, when at that time you can also breastfeed if baby seems ready and you're ready, and that's what you're going to do. So the problem is that in concept, most hospitals are on board with this. The frustrating part is that you still see it not being supported in a lot of hospitals. So it makes me crazy. It's really not okay, because it's research is like crystal clear that babies should be right there, skin to skin. And so partners, this is a huge thing. I think partners need to be an advocate for, where they are saying, no, can we do whatever you need to do while we're holding baby? Can we keep baby on? Can we not, can we pull up whatever you're wearing, shirt, gown, whatever, put baby right there, take out any blankets in between you. There's a lot of advocating that partners can help with this to really help make this happen. It's gotten a lot better than it used to be in most hospitals, but I find even I have witnessed it, even here in Seattle, I've witnessed it where I recently had family give birth. Everything seemed fine. I can't remember what it was, but there was something that was detected on the ultrasound anatomy scan that they wanted to check on. And, baby has just been born about 10 minutes. And they said, we're going to take the baby to the warmer to check on whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't something that was life-threatening, or even if they identified it, yes or no, they would do nothing different. Nothing. They just wanted to identify it. And I said to my client that had just given birth, do you want to see if they can do that check while you're still holding baby? And she was like, yeah, I don't want you to take this baby. What do you need to do that right now for? And the nurses were like, oh, yeah. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. It's like, this is not okay. Can you guys imagine that? We have a whole class on the baby as soon as the baby is born, and we're going to go into this. So I need to just reel it in. I get a little passionate about skin to skin. Okay. Kat K, this is my 6th class in. Sorry, I'm just commenting now. Welcome, Kat K. Welcome to the party. We're glad you're here. I was told my hospital course that only 10% of water breaks on its own during labor, and this is why they break it. Is this true? I don't love a hospital course for this reason. Sometimes what the information you get is a little skewed towards promoting hospital policies. I think the actual number is 20% of water breaks at the beginning of labor. It's not 10% of water breaks on its own. I would definitely fight that. I do not agree with that number. And the thing to know about that, Kat K and everyone else, is that what you can choose to have your water broken or not, whatever. But babies can be born without the water being broken. Like babies, it's actually called born in call, where the baby is born in the sac. Very, very, very rare. Supposed to be good luck in some cultures. But here's the thing. You guys, let me know if you're following this. Let me put this up again, Kat. Kat says that she was told by her hospital course that only 10% of water breaks on its own during labor, and that's why they break it. So I kind of sometimes go back to the idea of like, in most cases, our bodies know what to do. I mean, we are mammals. A lot of people can birth unattended, like accidentally. You've seen those. Well, you might not have seen it, but you probably heard about like, I didn't know I was pregnant, I had a baby kind of things. So the water, it seems hard to believe that if they didn't break it, only 10% of the people it would break on their own. Like, doesn't that seem wacky? Tell me in the comment. Does that seem normal or wacky? Normal or wacky? Thank you for asking that, Kat. That was a great question. Okay, Patty is saying, my hospital's baby friendly, but I keep hearing bad things about this lately, especially being able to rest while rooming in part. Yeah, so baby friendly is a classification that was set up to really promote getting breastfeeding off to the right start, getting babies off to the healthiest start. And what some of the effects of it have been difficult for some people and difficult for the hospitals to kind of find a happy medium between there. So I would ask around a little bit more to find out what challenges you might be facing. But you likely, if it's baby friendly, you will have baby with you in the room in a bassinet, which is why whoever's going to be supporting you, partner or doula or whatever your hospital will allow, needs to be ready, available, and taking care of themselves so that they will be able to allow you to rest, which is pretty key. Yes. Khalifa says, never understood why they always want to take your baby as soon as it pops out. No, you shouldn't have to fight to take your baby, to keep your baby. That is your baby. I like this wacky. Yes. Very good information. Yes. Okay. I got a question from Jay asking, is having your water broken painful, or does it cause a painful next contraction, or is that stripping the membranes that cause harder contractions? So the act of breaking the water is usually not painful, but when the water breaks either on its own or you have it broken, a lot of times the contractions are more painful because there's not that balloon buffer between the baby's body and your uterus. And so without that space, the uterus like is clamping down more and pushing baby down more and can be more intense, often more intense. Yeah. Okay. Diana says, are they prematurely breaking a high percentage of people's water? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's totally what is happening. Okay. Yes. Okay. Good. I don't see any more questions. How do we feel about that? Was our 6 healthy birth practices. So as a reminder, we had let labor start on its own. We had no unnecessary medical interventions. Movement is important in labor. Being upright to push is important in labor. Keeping baby together with parents, skin to skin, is important in labor. And then the one we're going to talk about now, and that is having continuous support for labor, being so important. Okay. Does it feel like a recipe? Does it feel like that it gives you guys some good sort of defaults on what is a setup for a healthy birth? Let me know truthfully. Or is it just kind of like common sense, or does it seem restrictive? I'd like to hear any and all comments. Also, if you're watching this on the replay, hello replay group, please leave a comment below. And if you have found anything today helpful, I appreciate smashing that like button. It is very helpful in helping other people find this class. Great. Okay, so continuous support, we talked about it a little bit, and it can be a partner, a doula, or both. Also depends on your situation, where you are giving birth, right? Continuous, the word continuous does not mean that you cannot be left, that you can't leave the person alone, okay? So that is kind of one of my first number ones to make sure that you guys know about continuous support, and that the person that is providing support, there's a couple things going on. That whole adage, not adage, maybe it's an analogy that I'm making. It's not an acronym, it's an analogy. When you are riding a plane and they give the spiel about, your mask is going to come down, and that if you're with a child or with someone who needs help, that you should put your mask on first before you put theirs on. So that does pertain to providing labor support, because as a support person, you need to make sure that you are taking care of yourself. And sometimes walking a fine line between being supportive and there and taking care of yourself. And sometimes you're having to balance that. Welcome to parenthood, right? For those of you who are parents, after you're a parent, you are always walking a fine line between taking care of yourself and taking care of someone else. Raise your hand. Do I get a heck yeah? But partners, what we want is we want you to take care of yourself, like to know that you might be the primary person to step up and have to take care of the baby, very likely after the baby's born. So if there is time to rest, you need to rest. It's your responsibility. I tell partners, if you and other doulas, if I'm teaching or training doulas, if there's an ability for you to be sitting while you're doing whatever job you're doing, you should be sitting. If there's an ability to be laying down while you're doing whatever you're doing, you should be laying down. So that and eating, drinking, I don't know how many partners I have reminded, like, hey, have you eaten anything? And they'll be like, oh, no, I'm fine. And I'm like, dude, you got to eat, right? It is important to take care of yourself, because you're going to crash. You can live on adrenaline for so long. And then once the baby's born, crash. And that is an important time. You guys in the chat understood my self-care, childcare. Always walking that fine line. Okay, so continuous support can look like allowing birthing person to be in the bathroom laboring and support person being outside of the bathroom, letting them have time alone and saying like, hey, I know you're in the tub laboring. I'm going to be right outside in the room. Just yell if you need anything. I think there's something pretty powerful when someone is left alone. And I don't mean alone like, see you later, I'm going to go down to the neighbors and go have a beer. No, that's not the alone I'm talking about. I'm talking about having some space, giving them some space. We've all heard about mammals that go, off on their own, or they go into sort of like a hiding place, a cave, a quiet place to give birth. Well, there's something to be said about that with partner support too, that you can be supportive close by and not have to be right with someone at all times. Now, some people want their partner right there with them at all times, but I encourage you to speak to who is going to be supporting you about giving you space to have some time to labor on your own in a supportive way. Just let me know if that makes sense. So that's a great conversation to have beforehand, what that can look like. Hey, I might want to labor sitting on the toilet on my own, bring in the Bluetooth speaker, but have your phone nearby because I might text you and want you to come up and keep me company or help me get into another position or whatever. Quick side note, because I know we have several people here that have given birth before and have little ones in the house, that for second timers and third timers and fourth timers, sometimes your body won't go into full labor if you are parenting. So if you are still in the role of parenting, sometimes your body like holds off on labor until either you have someone else take over parenting, you have a babysitter come in, kids go to school or kids go to a grandparent or something happens. Then when we see that taken care of, then labor will start. So just something to note for those that aren't on their first birth. Yeah. And I have seen this time and time again. So yes, Christy, I don't know if that is in relation to what I just said, but that is, I am telling you totally. Tanisha, I like this. Agreed with moments of laboring alone from her last birth. Husband didn't leave the room. From the last birth, didn't leave the room due to COVID. Right. For alone time, I put my headphones in and wore an eye mask. That is very smart. That is very smart. Yeah. Okay. I like this. This is absolutely true, Catherine. I love it. Yeah. Okay. So continuous doesn't necessarily mean continuously being stared at, right? And supported. Can have some alone time. I am a huge believer. Like I could preach about this for days, about talking through your support plan with your team, with your partner, with your doula. Talking it through. What sounds good? What doesn't sound good? What did you learn in class? What would you expect? The more you talk about it, what is this going to look like? When we're laboring at home, what are we going to do? Are we going to walk the dog? Are we going to be in the kitchen? Are you going to have the snacks? Talking about all of that. Inside the Supporting Her course, there is a game plan interview document that goes through all the questions that I recommend that you have a conversation with your support team about. So really important to talk about your plans. Partners really do matter. I I don't even want to know what to call this doctor. When I first came out with supporting her, my partner and I, not my life partner, but my business partner and I, we were going around meeting with doctors in the Atlanta area, telling them about supporting her. And we ran into this doctor who, we said, we've got this course, it's for partners, and it helps them be at their best so that they can really bring so much great support. And the doctor said, oh, no, I'm not interested in that. Dads, they're just useless. And it burned me up because your support team are not useless. Dads also just themselves are not useless. Partners, not useless. They're actually like untapped resources in a lot of ways. Like, I feel like a partner that hasn't prepared is like, oh, it could have really brought so much benefit. But they didn't know, they weren't prepared. So I think preparing partners and support people is key. Anne says, where is the list to talk about stuff with the support people? So Anne, the list is in supporting her, and it's called the game plan. So the game plan, and I know you're already in supporting her, so you have access to it already. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick, just so I can show you guys. Yeah, that, oh my gosh, Esther said, my husband passed out after we had our son as he didn't eat for a day and a half. Oh my gosh, Esther, I am so sorry. Yes, that is not okay. Kayla said, my partner at my last birth was useless. He made it worse. All the nurses were mad at him. Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh. And that's just not okay, right? Because there's enough going on that we don't need a partner that's not helpful, right? Okay, let me show you guys this real quick. Inside supporting her, so we have a section on before labor, then we have a section about during labor, and then after. So baby's here, now what? And these are the handouts. And so this first right here is the handout. That's the game plan. So that is what I was talking about, a list of questions to talk over with your partner. And it might be something that you don't know the answers to right now, but you need to think through, you need to work on it together and come through some important understanding. So one of the first questions is what is the most important thing for you for this birth besides a healthy outcome for all? So what are some of the things? Are there any concerns you have? What type of birth are you looking for? So that is in the supporting her course, the game plan document. And yes, Cindy said, I think my partner might pass out. He gets queasy easily. So if Cindy, this is the case with your partner, we need a plan for him. We need a plan for what does he do when he feels queasy? What snacks should he eat and bring? What can we expect him to be? And what are his limits? And it's okay to have limits. It is okay to have limits, but better to talk about them now than before, than in the moment where we're not sure. So, Khalifa, great idea. I watch pregnancy videos with my husband to help put him in the mindset of what to expect. That's a great idea. And that is one of really the reasons that I did that last video with those 5 birth vlogs that I liked, because some pregnancy vlogs can be edited a little dramatic and scary. So yeah, that is important. Yes, Patty said, my husband and I have already talked about him staying near my face and not looking down there. That's something to talk about. Get on the same page with that so that what feels comfortable to both of you and what the expectations are. And we actually cover that in the course, because I'll give you a quick preview of what's covered in the course. But nurses often are trying to convince partners to look. They're like, oh, come on, look. Don't you want to see? Don't you want to see? And I'm like, dude, like, don't say that. Like, let them have their own choices. So that is just some quick tips on partner support. I could go on for days about partner support, which I have, and it's in a course. But that hopefully that is a good sort of some good tips to get you guys started and start thinking about how your support person can work best for you. Okay, we are going to do a 30-second. We're not doing support necessarily because that is different, or that's not something that we're going to practice unless you are watching as a team. You have your support person there and they can help you with the breath movement as we do our 30 seconds. So I recommend changing a different position that you haven't done before, using breath and the vocalization, the low that we talked about last night, right? And of course, limp and loose, check in with your butt. 30 seconds, and I'll see you guys in the toolbox. Right there, I added it, support. I added it before I just had a visitor come find me, I guess because I'm going a little long tonight. Okay, visitor, hold up. So we added support, which reminds me that the supporting her special that we're doing today, it ends in 20 minutes, 19 minutes. So check it out, get the recordings or get the book or gift it. And it's a great, and get it for $10 off. It's a great deal. You will not regret investing in some extra support for your support person. Okay, awesome. So tomorrow night, we have a big night. We are going to talk all about the epidural. And our coping strategy that we're talking about tomorrow night, I'm checking, is visualization. Ooh, that's one of my favorites. I say that about a lot of them. So thanks, you guys. Thank you for taking your time, whether you're watching this live, this awesome group in the live chat. I love it. Or you are watching in the replay, regardless of how you are here. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your support. I appreciate the any of the support through liking and sharing through the Buy Me a Coffee link. All of that goes to goes a long way, and I really am thankful for it. So my background changed for a second there.
Don't forget about the deal. It's worth it.
Okay,
and there's money off of it, so go get it. It's worth
Thank you. That is a sign that it looks like it's time for me to say goodbye to you guys. And I'll see you tomorrow right here, same time for class 7. See ya. Bye.